Hello everybody, this is Paul Mallory. Welcome to this Thrive Tribe video recording. I am delighted today to welcome Anca Novacovici. How did I do?
You did great.
Fantastic.
You got it right.
Viewers, I've been practicing for hours. Anca Novacovici, a wonderful name from Romania, I understand. And Anca is actually not in Romania, you're in Washington.
I am.
Yes, in District of Columbia in USA.
Correct.
Fantastic. And thank you so much for joining us today. Anca is going to be really interesting because she's a speaker, she's an author, a sustainability advocate, and you run this company which I think you call Eco Coach, am I right?
Correct, yeah.
And it's about environmental sustainability. You've been doing that for 14 years or more, according to your website, serving organizations large and small, and promoting environmental sustainability, that's a mouthful, environmental sustainability and awareness. So basically helping businesses become more sustainable whilst improving business results at the same time, because businesses always have to worry about the results, of course. So thank you once again so much for joining us and for talking to all our viewers who are now all over the world. It's becoming really global, this audience. I'm delighted to say, and we get some great feedback comments afterwards. So you'll be interested to have a look at those, I'm sure, afterwards, Anca.
Yeah.
Can I kick off, before we get into sustainability and a bit more detail on that, can I just kick off a little bit with thinking about you as an individual? What does thriving mean to you? This channel, this YouTube channel, is all about, the idea is that we thrive and not just survive. There's more to life than just surviving. We want to be thriving. We want to be excited and inspired about life.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to get to. So how do you feel about that in your life? And what does thriving mean to you as an individual? And how do you sort of go about that in your life?
Well, first of all, I love the idea, and thank you so much for having me. I'm excited about this because I think as an individual, for me, what I'm trying to do is to be the best version of me and to show up as the best version of me every day. And there are so many different things that I think you can do every day to do that. But one of the things that I've been doing, and I have to give a quick shout out because I started this program about a year or so ago. It's called Optimize.me with Brian Johnson. And basically it's kind of how to thrive. But part of this is, I was doing a lot of it before, but this is just more structure around it, is every morning you think about what's the best version of myself in 3 different areas: in energy, work, and love. So in energy, how much am I sleeping? How am I moving? What am I eating? Am I exercising or not, right? So that's the sort of thing. What's my identity? What are the virtues that I want to embody in that? In work, it's the same thing, right? And in love, like for self-love, I think we often overlook ourselves, but then other people too, your family. How am I showing up every day? Am I patient? Am I present? Or am I kind of on my phone trying to do something, right? So presence is a really big thing, and reminding myself every single day of that. Meditating for about 15 minutes a day has really helped. Trying to get as much sleep as possible. I have 2 little ones under 5, so it's a little bit tough, but, and really showing up as ideally a radiant exemplar of you as a human being. And so that's my goal, right? And so every day is a new day, and becoming slightly better and getting towards that goal.
I love that. I love the idea of those 3 things: energy, work, and love. And I couldn't agree more. I've sort of focused in on all of those. Energy, I think, is a really interesting one. And we've talked about it on some of the other video interviews that I've done in various contexts, but there's so much in that subject of, and actually they're all very interlinked, aren't they? Because I think, for example, when you're doing something you love, which I'm guessing you probably are, because I'm guessing you're probably pretty mission driven about what you do, then that carries an energy with it, doesn't it? As opposed to doing a job, when we talk about just surviving, a lot of people, I think, go and do jobs for the rent. And there's a different energy to that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I love that. And the website you mentioned was optimize.me, is that right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So that's worth having a look at, people. I love already that philosophy. So let's move on from that then into, how does this relate to your expertise, your subject matter expertise, your sustainability interest? I presume at some point that struck you as the thing to get into. Can you recall what led up to that?
It did. Well, actually, so my background, my undergrad was in international relations. And
Okay.
so I had two loves at the time. It was diplomacy
Mhm.
and also the environment.
Okay.
But when I graduated, the environment wasn't something that you could really get into. I wasn't a scientist, kind of, that's not where my mind goes.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really kind of kind of like an activist, so to speak.
Okay.
Excuse me. Just getting over a cold too. So I figured, how can I make a path for myself that involves the environment? Because, oh, by the way, I decided I wasn't diplomatic enough to be a diplomat. That's the problem. So
What's the drawback?
I mean, honestly, it's just like I started studying it. I started hanging around. I had a mentor who was a career diplomat. And I was like, and you know what? Everything shows in my face. So if I'm happy or if I disagree, it's in my face. So it doesn't work that way, right?
You don't play
So
poker.
yeah, I mean, might as well figure it out sooner, right? Rather than later. But the environment was also a passion of mine. I figured,
Yeah.
how can I get the experience to work with businesses? Because business is what interested me. It's like businesses create change. They have a huge impact. They create positive or negative change based on kind of the direction that they go in. They have a huge impact. And so at the time, there was no such thing as a kind of sustainability MBA or courses or what have you. So I basically set out to forge my own way. And so I got an MBA in management consulting and in international relations and also management consulting.
Okay.
And then worked for a small management consulting firm for about 4 years. And then went off on my own and did that for a couple more years. And it got to the point, so basically at the time that I was getting the management consulting skills and ramping that up and the business skills, I also was teaching myself about sustainability. And so ramping those up. And it got to the point, honestly, where and I'm so grateful for the opportunities that I've had in my life, because I was doing my own thing. I was making great money. I was setting my own schedule, but I still wasn't happy. I still had that, like, I need to do something with sustainability right in the back of my mind. And one day that's it. I just quit and did it. And I got to tell you, if you're an entrepreneur, you're thinking about quitting your job and kind of getting started, or you have like a passion that you've been itching to start, definitely do it. Do it. Figure out what your personality is. If you're risk averse, start slowly. And if you're okay with kind of just burning all bridges, you can start faster. But I just decided I was going to go for it, and I haven't looked back since. So I've been very, very blessed and very grateful for what I get to do.
Fantastic. And thanks for sharing that. I think it's one of the experiences. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good. This cold is still lingering. So
my experience in coaching, career coaching, and things like that over the years has been that one of the most difficult things potentially for people to do is to uncover, their deepest values and who they really are, because we have so much noise overlaying it, of being sensible and rational and doing what we should do, societal pressures, group pressures, peer pressures. A lot going on there for people to try and sift through and think, yeah, but who am I, and what is my place in this world, and what should I be doing? And it's taken me a very long time to get to the point of launching Thrive Tribe. So I couldn't agree more. When you do finally spot it, for goodness sake, just start it, even if it's in the evening or spare time or whatever. But any thoughts about how do you get to that level of awareness, or for you was it just very natural and very obvious?
It was natural. It's kind of like I had that yearning, but I had so many layers telling me not to do it. So I come from an immigrant background. I was born in Romania. We went to France, then came to the States, and it was always like, you've got to do something that will make you money. You've got to do something that has status, right? And it's not a bad thing. I think that's a good thing to do if that's your personality. For me, diplomacy sounded great. I love international relations. But I didn't have the personality necessarily for it. So it's, even though in my head I thought, oh, this would be a great career, right? I don't want to be a lawyer. I don't want to be a doctor, right? a diplomat sounds so much fun. I love traveling. I love meeting new people. I love different cultures.
Yeah.
But honestly, the diplomacy part of it didn't really work for me. And so it just kept on, it was in the back of my head all the time.
Mm.
The sustainability and the environment. I didn't name it sustainability. It was more like, oh, I want to do environmental work to help businesses become more, make less of a negative impact on the planet.
Right.
It wasn't sustainability at the time. That's kind of what I had in my mind.
Yeah.
And then it evolved. And honestly, it's still evolving. So, like I started out with one thing and it's going to morph and I think it's going to change. And it's figuring out what really just makes you happy at the moment and understanding that it's going to change and being open to that change and being flexible to that, because a lot of people are going to look at that and say, well, 5 years ago you were doing XYZ. How do you feel? But now you just completely changed, or you're focusing in a different direction. Well, okay, yeah, I'm digging deeper into who I am,
right,
and I'm learning more about myself, and I'm being more open to new ideas. And so that's kind of the direction. That's why I'm changing direction. So yeah.
And I think that's a really powerful point you're making as well. This is a journey of change. I mean, it's not going to be the one thing probably for most of us for the whole of our lives. And that's certainly been true in my case, that I've tried different things and it's been a case of, maybe it's more like this or more like that.
Yeah.
But I always encourage people to try things. If you're feeling uneasy or if you're feeling bored or you're feeling like this isn't quite it, then just try something else. And you're potentially going to pick the wrong thing, but it will help you get to the right thing. Yeah. Because I think people get very hung up on, what if I pick the wrong thing? I might ruin my career, or from experience, the most unhappy people in life are the people who settled on a career path early and stuck with it, even though it's the wrong one.
Yes. Yep.
And they may have reached the top of their profession and become the best in the world at it, and still feel really unhappy because it's not what they should be doing.
Yeah, it looks great on the outside, but inside you're kind of shriveling up. Yeah.
So that's really helpful. Thank you for contributing that. So your specialist subject of sustainability, would you mind talking a little bit about what you actually do to help companies and how that impacts the employees in organizations and so on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Physically what you do?
Yeah, so physically, and it's also back to kind of that. The last couple of years, we've added on and changed some things, but basically a lot of it has been face-to-face consulting and meeting with organizations and helping them think through what their sustainability and kind of environmental sustainability initiatives are going to look like. Mm-hmm. That can vary. So for me, I would prefer, the ideal would be an organization to develop a sustainability strategy, figure out where they're going, kind of the big picture, and then implement it operationally. But a lot of times we'll work with organizations who, let's say, want to start with recycling. Let's up our recycling, or let's look at new products, right? Or let's kind of get our employees engaged and teach them about sustainability before we really dig deeper into it, right? To see what the reaction is. So depending on the level, right? So I've worked with a steering committee of CEOs to support them and develop strategies kind of across a member-based organization, right? So it's 165 different kind of autonomous organizations, and those CEOs are interested in sustainability and have very different situations, right? And so kind of how do you adapt sustainability across the board in different areas, and kind of like waste and energy and kind of getting more granular than that, right? Okay. Then operationally, so there's a strategic level, then operationally, it's like going in and saying, okay, how can you improve what you're doing and make it more eco-friendly? So if you have a product, how can you make it more eco-friendly? If your procurement process is kind of a conventional procurement process, what can you do to add products that maybe are cost neutral or just slightly more expensive that are eco-friendly? Yeah. And so that sort of thing. And then the employee engagement part, the organizational behavior, getting people on board, doing challenges, gamifying, sustainability, having like fun things to do. so that sustainability becomes something that's part of an organizational culture.
Okay.
Oh, and I was going to add, so the last couple of years, one of the things, speaking of, that I've been doing is soul searching and kind of figuring out, how do I create more change faster for smaller businesses?
Right.
Because I usually work with medium-sized businesses, and smaller businesses don't have the budget for a consultant. They don't have the time for like kind of one face-to-face meetings. And so I developed an online program that essentially helps kind of walk people through, helps a green champion walk through different ways to identify, plan, implement, track, and communicate a sustainability or going green project. And so I have like coaching, I have group coaching tied to that and what have you, to make sure they succeed. So it's kind of like, I went to doing face-to-face, and okay, I want to create change, but I want to create more change and faster. So how do I do that? So this has been kind of my answer.
Right. So this is very interesting to me as a non-expert in this subject, and looking at this partially, you know, with the mindset of thriving and what people are trying to do to thrive in life generally, and using you as the example, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Because what's coming across really interestingly to me about what you're saying is it you know, it wouldn't be unusual to have somebody working in consultancy and selling for large day rate fees to big organizations to make a living. What you seem to be, what's coming across from you much more is you're trying to make a change.
Yeah.
And therefore it's about what are all the different ways I could make a change.
Yeah.
So do you have a personal mission or vision? When will you have succeeded? what are you hoping to achieve?
You know,
very big
when will I have succeeded, man? That's a really good one. Well, the grandiose vision is when every business has turned to a positive impact on the environment versus a negative.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's really not just
Good
businesses, but nonprofits too. Yeah.
Good answer. So that's what's driving your behavior, making you feel passionate, giving you that energy we talked about, that you're trying to achieve that.
Yeah.
And just going on from that a little bit, because I think it links, you know, for many people, as we were just saying, they pursue a career path, or they look for a career path. Mm-hmm. And I think thrivers actually are a bit more creative, and I think they're a bit more mission driven, in the sense of they tend to identify something they want to see different in the world.
Yeah.
So for me, I want to see more thriving. And the reason I want to see that is, I think it's such a shame that people don't have a more meaningful experience of this one life that we get.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't we introduce a bit of excitement and inspiration in what we do every day?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what drives me. And for you, it's, as you just articulated, about, you know, these companies and organizations having a positive impact rather than a negative impact. So that's quite different, isn't it, to a career path? I mean, presumably you didn't think to yourself, sustainability, that's the career path. There are several levels I can climb, get promoted, which is typical, isn't it? Traditional. Yeah.
Yeah. And believe me, I mean, I am a risk averse person. And so it was, you know, when life kind of led me this way, I did struggle with it, because I thought, well, this isn't the way I should be doing it. This is a completely new path. At the time, that was a completely new path. There were very few people doing what I was doing. And it was like, okay, this is something that I don't know if it's going to work or not, but I have to try. You get to the point, or at least I got to the point, where I couldn't not do it.
Yeah.
Because it was such a like, I felt like I was spending my days doing something that wasn't helping me grow. I wasn't learning anything new. I was successful by kind of external outside standards. And I had clients asking me to add more people and grow projects. And I was like, no, can't do it. The idea of spending kind of 8 hours, 10 hours a day doing something that I'm good at, but is not really, is devoid of meaning, is just soul deadening after a while. So that was what led to my decision.
Yeah, you're right. There's that risk balance decision that we make, particularly if we're in work and we're receiving income and we're feeling reasonably secure and life is reasonably good. For many people, I was recording a video on this the other day. For many people, it's actually kind of okay.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
survival territory to me. That's not thriving, you know.
Yeah.
It's okay, and if that's all you want, that's fine. I'm not going to criticize anyone.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but the people, by definition, the people watching these videos, like me, think to themselves, yeah, but maybe there's a bit more that's possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're going to reach at some point that, and it happened to me when I left big corporate life and went into contracting work. It was the same thing that you've just described, that the balance of risk tipped from
Yeah.
security being the most important thing to, is this how I want to spend the rest of my life, being the most important thing.
Yeah.
And that's where the balance
Exactly.
tipped. And
Yeah.
did you feel secure when you made that choice? Did you have safety net? What enabled you to leap?
I had some savings, so I knew that I would have kind of a year to see
Right,
if it worked out or not.
right,
So
nice.
I did definitely do
Yeah.
that.
No, I think this is also a very good tip for people, you know, because this stuff that I do for the Thrive Tribe, which is not income generating at the moment, I hope it might be at some point, but it's certainly not at the moment. I do it because I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah.
I do have other stuff I do in corporate training, which helps pay my rent and stuff. So, you know, there's the realism side of it as well as the mission driven side, isn't there? And the one enables the other, which I think is good, you know. So what I would always suggest to people who are trying to get into something new maybe is just start in a small way. Just start in the evenings, start the weekends, you know. But if you're passionate about something, grow it, make it bigger. And it will inevitably, if you're really passionate, it will inevitably take over at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, you feel the same way. So that's a really good conversation. Thank you for that. Now, let me ask you a bit more about the sustainability and where we're getting to, because this is another big, obviously, area of concern for thrivers and everybody out there, actually, the whole climate change and environmental sustainability thing. Do you feel like we're making progress in organizations? You talk to a lot of them. Are organizations really grasping it? Is the reason for optimism? Is there any sense you come across in which, I'm slightly cynical by nature, I think, that people are doing it for PR reasons and because it's a good selling message to the marketplace and that kind of thing, rather than being serious about it. How do you find that? I'm really curious to know what your experience in real life is.
Yes, they are doing it for PR reasons, and that's okay.
Yeah, yes.
That's the first thing that I wanted to get out of the way. Is I think I get this question a lot, actually, as to, you know, the actual motivation for companies going green. And honestly, if they're doing it to get more PR, which means they're getting more customers, if they're changing the way that they interact with the environment and with the community in a positive way in order to attract customers who are aligned with those values, and that improves their brand, it's a win-win for everyone, right? It's a win-win for the customer, for the company, for the planet, and I'm fine with that. It doesn't, and I think that's one of the things that I struggled with in the beginning when I started out, because I felt like I had to, if I didn't work with a company who truly believed that they needed to do this because they had to help the environment, then I kind of felt like, do I really, am I aligned with this company's values? Do I want them as a client? But the reality is that if you're a business, you have to be financially viable and sustainable in the long term. And in order to do that, you actually need clients, right? You need for your brand to be at the forefront. You need that competitive advantage, and sustainability gives you that competitive advantage. And so why not do it? And I have seen quite a change, I think, from 2006 till when I started Eco Coach to now. There's definitely a lot more people taking actions. There's obviously so much more awareness, for good or bad, obviously, around climate change and kind of what's happening more and more. And businesses, the larger businesses, the majority of them have taken action. They have sustainability reports, you know, some more detailed than others, some that need more work. It's trickling down to medium-sized companies and then the smaller businesses too. And that's where I see the smaller businesses, which make up the majority of employment for kind of globally. Those are the ones that are slower on the uptake because they're surviving. And so they haven't had the chance to see this as something that can help their businesses. So yeah, I mean, I think there is a huge amount of awareness that's been growing. Is action going to happen fast enough? who's to say, right? For
Yeah.
me, the way I look at it is we each focus on doing the best we can and making the most
Yeah.
within our little part of the world.
Yeah.
And if we all do that, then yes, there's going to be positive change.
Yeah.
But if we all sit here and start thinking, oh my God, it's not to say that I don't think about climate change, but if I think about climate change every day, I would just go crazy. I wouldn't do anything. I'd get depressed.
Yeah.
I think about, what can I do today? What are the actions that I can take today that are going to make an impact? Because little by little, those actions add up. And if I can influence other people, then that creates kind of a ripple effect where other people take action and get excited and get energized. And to me, I think positive energy has so much more power than negative energy. So that's my take on it.
I love what you just said. I totally love it, because this principle of just doing what you personally can do, even though it feels really small, I've often thought that's such a good principle in relation to all kinds of things, poverty and whatever. Just do, give a £5, do what you can do. Because when you think about it, if everybody does that, problem solved.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? If we decide not to do it because nobody does, problem not solved. And so I think thrivers do that. I think that's definitely an attribute of thrivers. You've really put your finger on something important there. That they say, I don't care what everyone else is saying, I'm going to do the right thing.
Yeah. And really, when you think about it, you can have one of two mentalities. And I think you can have a victim mentality or a creator mentality, right? So I think when you're sitting here and consuming all this negative media and all this information, you have that victim, you can easily fall into the victim mentality. Like, all this stuff is happening to me, what am I going to do, right? Versus being a creator, you're creating your life. You are creating what can happen around you. And yes, obviously not everything is going to be good. And so you need to choose your reaction to things that aren't good around you. But you can still create things. You don't have to be a victim. Falling into the victim mentality doesn't serve anyone. Doesn't serve you.
And there seem to be, understandably, there seem to be increasing numbers of people protesting against things. And I kind of understand why that's happening, and I agree with a lot of it. But just protesting against things doesn't necessarily move us forward, does it?
Exactly.
It's not necessarily positive action. So I'm not decrying it in any sense. And sometimes it's needed to move other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. But we need to look at ourselves individually and saying, am I doing more than just being against something?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
As well to a positive outcome. And I think then we start to change the world. So that's really important. I wanted to ask you as well, if you don't mind, do you find that people in organizations that you do this work with, does having more of a focus on sustainability, does that affect employees' attitudes to their organization? Do they feel more engaged and more mission driven? I would imagine it would create a more positive mindset. Do you see that in practice?
Yeah, it absolutely does. I mean, it creates excitement. It actually, and there's studies that show that it increases productivity, that it decreases turnover, it increases kind of the sense of well-being that employees have within organizations. Yeah.
Right.
Excuse me. If you're working for an organization that is aligned with your values and that is taking action, absolutely. And there are a lot, I mean, it's just, you hear a lot about millennials caring about sustainability and the Gen Zers, but the Gen Xers also care, the Boomers care. It's across, to me, if an organization is doing good, is helping the planet, is helping the community, that absolutely has an effect internally on employee morale and boosts it.
So we're literally helping people to thrive through that process and vehicle. You just reminded me, actually, just as a side thought, of I did some work with a company years ago called Welsh Water, the water company in Wales, the utility company. And what you've just reminded me of is I remember seeing that their engagement and retention figures were very high, because the people who worked for that company saw themselves as the custodians of the marshes and the beaches and the seaside. It wasn't just going to work for a utility. We're looking after our beautiful surroundings. And as a result, people stayed for years and years and years. They didn't want to leave. They were very into what they were doing. Just by nature of, they saw it as looking after the planet.
Yeah, Yeah.
So just proves the point, really. Fantastic. Thank you so much. And we probably ought to just round up and summarize, if that's okay.
Yep.
Yeah, do you know, some fantastic points, I think, have emerged there for thrivers to think about. I love what you were saying about finding a way to add service rather than just thinking about careers. Because I think that's what we're here for, is to find out why we're here and how can we best add value, which is usually serving someone else in some way or another,
Yeah.
in my
Yeah.
experience. Do you agree? And doing what you can and not feeling like it's all too big and it's all too hopeless, so I won't do anything.
Yeah.
And I loved what you said about the creator mentality versus the victim mentality. So thinking positively, thinking about how can I create something while I'm here. I think that all adds to this notion of being a thriver rather than merely surviving the process and staying safe and not taking any risk. And you talked about the risk balance. Any other thoughts to summarize on how people can think about thriving based on your experience?
I think with the in sustainability in general, think about it, it's not just sustainability and going green at work. It is at home with your health. Kind of it all trickles down, right? So one of the things that I feel like there's a connection increasingly being made. It's like we're saving the planet, we're also saving ourselves. And so when you're doing this, when you're passionate about sustainability or whatever you're passionate about, you influence other people, right? And you can influence people either way. You're influencing them every day, right? In a positive way or a negative way. So think about influencing them in a positive way. And if you're interested in sustainability, if you're interested in kind of going green at work, or how do I get started with this, you can do it. You can become a green champion at work. You can think about, what am I most interested in? Am I interested in the outdoors? Great. Well, can I organize some sort of community cleanup event with my company? Or am I interested in less plastic waste? Okay, well, how can I reduce plastic at my organization? And how can I get started? And the thing that I tell a lot of people is that you can create change even when you're not in charge, right? So don't let that stop you, right? If you are thinking, well, I have a passion, I'm not ready to start to head out on my own, you can create change and you can potentially apply that passion to your workplace or to your personal life. But I mean, so don't wait. Don't think like, oh, I'm going to do this, 5 years down the road. Start doing it today. I think that's one of the things. It's like we have such a finite time on this earth, take advantage of it.
Do what you can. Even
do what you can.
Small, do what you can. If everybody does what they can, we'll get a grip on it.
Yes.
Anca, thank you very much. What a lovely note to end on. And thank you so much. Please keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. You too.
We need you to
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful. Thank you for joining. Bye for now.